Welcome to What's New, the podcast that keeps you up to date on all things new in New Orleans. I'm Tim Williamson, and each episode I talk with people who are pushing the boundaries and making an impact in our city. So sit back, relax, and just remember, what if it works? Welcome to What's New, live from the Nieux. And the purpose of the podcast every week is to explore what is new in New Orleans, what's new in the region, and what's new at the Nieux. Today, we're here with Marty Meyer.
You did it on purpose.
Just to see if you're ready to go. And Bradley Cook, who are residents of the North Shore, members of the New Society, but more importantly have a new idea. Palette, which is going to be the innovation space within on North Shore, is very exciting and is opening up in the next couple of weeks. But before we talk about the specifics of the space, what we were just talking about is, how did we get here?
Yeah.
Is this just a building? Is this just a beautiful building with good coffee and Wi-Fi? Or, what is Palette North Shore?
So we are an entrepreneur hub. So we are going to be a very innovative space for entrepreneurs on the North Shore and around the region to come to and get access, whether that's access to capital, access to networks, access to other people. We'll have co-working space, private office space, and then we're going to be partnering with some really great organizations for programming. And so if you are interested in any way in startup, if you're interested in any way in business education, we've got partnerships with SOU, with the College of Business. We've got partnerships with Idea Village and GNO Inc. out of New Orleans. So we're bringing a lot of these partners to this space, and we're going to be partnering with Startup North Shore, who already is running some programs for startups and entrepreneurs on the North Shore. So a lot of that is coalescing under one roof. And so my co-founder, I'm obviously Bradley Cook, but co-founders Marty and Catherine Hover is a part of this team, and she's actually the founder of Palette. Started 2 locations as female co-working spaces in New York, and we'll talk about kind of her generation to opening something down here and partnering with us, and then Rory Gallardo, who's a entrepreneur on the North Shore that's a partner of ours. But that's what Palette North Shore is really kind of all about and what we're trying to create. And it's taken a long time to get here, which is kind of, I think, the question you're asking.
Well, tell me, where is it located? And when's
Sure.
Let's get the facts down the table.
Yeah.
What kind of coffee do we
And what type of, where's it located?
It's right off of Highway 190 where the new Aldi's been built. It's a single-story office building that actually my partner Rory and I bought about a year ago with the idea of putting an entrepreneur space in here and doing something innovative on the North Shore. So easy to get to, centrally located right there in Covington, right off the interstate, or right off North Causeway.
And right now you are launching it, seeking founding partners, right?
We are, yeah. So we've opened it up for 100 founding members. The cost to join that is $2,025. That founding membership is going to start on January 21st. We're still in construction, build out for the space. We actually have an event on August 27th at the building, which is 201 Holiday Boulevard in Covington, Louisiana. You can go to palettenorthshore.com to sign up for that event if it's something you'd like to do. But yeah, we're looking for 100 founding members who really believe in the idea of creating an entrepreneur space to build this culture, to build this ecosystem, to kind of push the idea forward that the North Shore really should be a major player in this region.
So let's go there. So in terms of, if someone's listening to this, what's exciting is, that the North Shore is coming together and having this remarkable space. But it wasn't easy to get here. If I'm going to be a founding member, there's something special happening here, and you called it the collision of 3 visions. So, Marty, tell me what's going on here. You've been doing not only a civic leader within the North Shore for a long, long time, but specifically around the startup ecosystem over the last 15 years. Was this easy? What is the moment we're in right now?
No, it's not easy. And in the building, you asked, is it about a building? It's not about a building. The building is a culmination of a lot of events that have happened over the last 15 years plus, and then just maybe a collision of circumstances or coincidence. Although my mom always said there's no such thing as coincidences. Things happen for a reason. Yeah. And so, no, but going back a little bit, 15 years ago, I was the first chair of GNO Inc. from the North Shore.
That was a big idea.
It was a big idea. It was just not too far removed from post-Katrina, which was, it was still like, what's New Orleans? What's the future of New Orleans? How successful is New Orleans going to be? Obviously, the North Shore was really the gem because it wasn't damaged. A lot of people had moved over there. There was and I became the first chair from the North Shore, which was
It's in between New Orleans and Baton Rouge.
and it was in between New Orleans and Baton Rouge. There was a struggle between, is St. Tammany and North Shore part of New Orleans or part of Baton Rouge, which I always thought was a ridiculous conversation anyway, like a tug of war between who we belong to, like the Alsace-Lorraine. Let's fight over territory. But,
And you were in college at the time, right?
yeah, this was ancient.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know for a lot of people, it goes back in ancient history, but that's what it's about.
So what did you see back then about startup and ecosystem? Why did you take the mantle and the flag of we need to build an ecosystem? Because that wasn't a popular idea back then.
Well, back in, again, for those people who were alive and around in 2010, or could at least were sense of reason back in 2010 and knowing what was going on. I mean, again, like what does economic development mean? How are we going to grow jobs? How are we going to keep our young people here in this region, rather than moving away? And and I have 4 kids, and I was like, how do you keep the kids here? And one of the things that I always felt like was, and in Tim, I looked at Idea Village, and I looked at some of the stuff that you and your partners had started over here in the New Orleans area, and I was thinking, startups and entrepreneurship and these ground up companies was a way to grow jobs. Because I didn't think we were going to get Fortune 500 companies necessary to locate here. So I was always focused in on how do we create that ecosystem. And then in living in the St. Tammany, I saw that there were a lot of people that started very successful companies over there because they chose to live over there because of, their kids' education, or because they didn't, and they didn't want to commute across the bridge, and they had great ideas, and they have some very successful startups over there that have been extraordinarily successful, but there was no ecosystem. So I always felt like, well, this is a logical way of maybe creating opportunities for young people and startups that just doesn't exist. So I didn't know what I was doing, but I was tackling it, and I focused, and Michael Hecht and I focused. We thought, okay, let's get a building. Let's get an IP North.
The IP North building, right? Yeah.
Let's get the IP North building, because if we had a hub, we felt back then in 2010, if we had a hub, and of course I was the chair, and it would have been something, it would have been a physical presence, which would have been a wonderful.
You would cut the ribbon.
It would have been a wonderful testament to my success as president, as chairman, and they could have put my statue right there in the front. But we focused in on the building, and we actually identified a building in downtown Covington, and needless to say, the building didn't happen. But as you point out,
but you didn't have the ecosystem.
We didn't have the
people.
ecosystem.
So for the last 15 years,
yeah.
What have you been doing to build the ecosystem? You were talking about the pieces coming together.
So the pieces coming together. So so from there, my passion for startups and entrepreneurship over as far as an economic driver didn't wane. That didn't work out, but it became focused on how do we create the environment. Michael Hecht always said, economic development, you have to eliminate some of the negative things for what's economic development that keeps people away. And so, there was a lot of things going on structurally with the Economic Development Organization, politically, in terms of, and so I started focusing on some of those things. We recreated, I was involved in recreating the Economic Development Organization over there a number of years later and reformat it as St. Tammany Corporation. We were able to hire the CEO, Chris Massengill, who's doing a wonderful job.
Yeah. Who was a champion of entrepreneurship.
Who's a champion of entrepreneurship. So those steps happened over, those were not easy because it took, we had to go through changes in structure. We had to dissolve some things, and there's always people, anytime you change, you create change, you create people that are against change. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people that don't want change, and so every step of the way, it's like you have to keep pushing against the negativity. So we ended up creating a new organization. We hired a new CEO, and then the next step a couple of years ago that I thought was significant in terms of creating better ecosystem was the partnership that St. Tammany Corporation struck with Idea Village to start up the End Start program, which was the virtual training for North Shore startups. And we hired an entrepreneur in residence, Cenzo Corona. And the first cohort, I was still chair of St. Tammany Corporation then, so it was very meaningful to me because I was still the chair of that organization. And the first cohort we hired, that was announced in like July of 2 years ago. We hired Cenzo in August, and the first cohort of the startup class on the North Shore started in September. So it happened pretty quickly.
Yep.
And there was 20, maybe 25 startups
Yeah, my startup actually went through that.
in the first cohort.
All right, is that right?
Yeah.
And then so now 2 years ago there's been over 70 that have gone through that program. Last fall there was the first pitch competition that the winner got, which was Elena Scott, who formed Kinks
Yep.
hair products, and she got awarded prizes totaling $60,000 in cash and in-kind products. And so what that showed was there was some demand and appetite for this, because these cohorts there's people that are signing up for this virtual training that's being done by Idea Village and Cenzo running, but there's no place to really connect them. It's like, what's the next step? So going back to a long-winded answer to, no, it didn't just happen. That's 15 years of one step, and then just in the past year, the collision of these three visions came together with mine that's been going on 15 years. Catherine's, she started this palette in upstate New York 5 years ago, and Bradley's vision for his campus.
So Bradley, tell me about this. 'Cause the journey, the journey to build it, and then you had your idea. Tell me about when you walked into Marty's office.
Yeah.
I mean, because you had just retired, right?
I was a few weeks
Yeah, a couple of
officially
weeks.
retired.
Of a remarkable business and civic career. And
Yeah.
Bradley, you hit the lottery. You walked
Yeah.
into Marty. Tell me about that moment.
Yeah, well, I've worked for Marty now for 8 years, or did work for Marty
When he was CEO of Sterling. So I've been able to watch him, been able to work with him in some capacity for some of these things in terms of building the ecosystem. Sat on a couple of boards. So we've crossed paths in this space, and I knew his vision. I knew a little bit about his heart. I mean, like, he obviously has his signatures all over this thing for 15 years in the realm of like being a part of hiring Michael Hecht, Chris Mascio, like putting important players at the table to help create this ecosystem. I think he's a little bit more modest than he should be, but so I knew that he had a heart for this, and I knew it was something he was passionate about. And when I started looking at this building initially, I was actually doing it on behalf of clients that were looking at leasing space or buying space, and it was a vacant building that just it needed a vision. Nobody could really see it, and every time I walked through it with somebody, it just kept percolating in my mind of like these new ideas kept coming to the surface, like, what if I did this, and what if and then it turned into this thing. It's like, okay, well, I'm just going to take the risk here. I'm going to buy this building. I'm going to find a partner or partners, investors with me, and we're going to launch this. So I went and talked to a couple different investor groups. None of them really were the right partner for me until I sat down with Rory Gallardo, who's one of our co-founders in Palette Northshore. And he was willing, as an entrepreneur, he has an entrepreneurial spirit. So he was willing to risk. He's like, Bradley, let's do it. And so we had this idea of, if we can get this building purchased, it's a really, really unique space that you really kind of have to see to believe in terms of how we're going to develop this space out. Like really, really cool with an open air courtyard in it for events and things like that. It's going to really be a nice hub for this entrepreneurial idea. But our vision, just from a real estate play standpoint, was like, let's buy this. Let's get a couple of tenants in there really quickly. I'm trusting you, Bradley, that you can do that, and we can kind of get in the black, and then we can take our time building this vision. And so as soon as we were able to kind of secure some of those leases, my plan always was like, I'm going to go talk to Marty. I just don't know when, and I don't want to come to him before I have something that's actually palatable, if I can use a pun. Because I didn't want to come to him with this big risk of, I've got this vacant building, let's do something that's crazy. So I was able to come to him, and we were able to get enough tenants in there by the end of the year, December, right before he finally retired. And once I stroked the pen on that last lease and had 25% of the space, 5,400 square feet available for an entrepreneurial hub, I said, hey, I want you to, walked into his office, I said, I have an idea for you. I'd like you, if you're willing to consider being the president of an advisory board to help launch an entrepreneurial space on the North Shore. And without hesitation, his response was, I'm in. And I knew
You had me at hello. Was it?
Yeah, Jerry Maguire, right? You had me at hello. So it was a really.
Were you waiting for that meeting? Did you imagine that? No. Were you thinking one day?
No.
Please, somebody come in and have an idea to do this.
No.
No.
I mean, I wasn't waiting for it by any means, Tim, because I didn't think it was going to happen, that's why I'm saying it's so ironic that Bradley says, I need to talk, I need to talk to you about an idea. And I had no idea what the idea was he wanted to talk to me about. And I go, okay. So he came in with this idea, and I was like, wow, that's, like he said, that really was right up my alley. But what was really interesting, that's is where this whole thing is, as I started to say earlier, I had been connected with Catherine Hover like 6 months prior through the GNO Inc. connection. So I had been working with her kind of at a distance on her idea on the North Shore. And that's when I said, well, that's interesting. Yeah, I said, because I need to connect you with Catherine, because she's got this idea and you've got this building and I've got this vision. And so, so we connected, and it was like everything else, like we had no idea where this was going. We started talking, the three of us, in January, and here we are.
Yeah.
Tell me about the relationship between you guys. I mean, it's so
It's fun.
I mean, tell me. It's so like you've had a remarkable career. Your career's ascending, but
Well, even
you guys are
being
coming.
hired at Sterling's an interesting coincidence, if you will.
My mom said this thing is coincidences.
Yeah, right. It's like
Synchronicity.
So how old was I at the time?
You were in high school.
Yeah, 17 maybe, senior year in high school. And I go on a bike trip with my dad and a bunch of his buddies. And he's one of the buddies. There's like 25, 30 guys that are like my dad's age. And I get invited. It's up in Sally, North Carolina. And me and my little brother, I'm pretty sure Patrick was with us.
He was.
He was, yeah. So we go on this bike trip. Well, I didn't.
Bike and whitewater rafting.
I mean, obviously, Marty remembered my dad and his kids. So a couple of years later, I'm in Kansas City, have just jumped into commercial real estate, doing industrial real estate in Kansas City, and going through this process of like, man, I'm about to build a new business. Do I want to do it here, or do I want to do it where I'm connected? Mm-hmm. And so I made a decision in my first year of getting into industrial real estate. Like, I think I'm going to transfer myself down. And so I called Sterling Properties, and I called Marty. I actually called a friend who put the bike trip on, a guy named Howard Vince, is a really cool dude. And I called him and I said, hey, my dad just reminded me that we know Marty through this. Would you mind helping connect me? He connected me. So I took a trip down, sat down with Marty, and in that conversation, he pulled in the broker manager, Chris Abity, to that conversation. And one thing led to another, and a week or two later, Chris calls me and says, hey, we'd like to offer you a position. If you're willing to move down here, we'd love to hire you and bring you on as an agent. And so it was just another one of those coincidental things where like Marty and I go back to when I was 16, 17 years old in a weird way, which is really cool.
So tell me, Palette, which is a innovative entrepreneurial hub on the North Shore.
Yeah.
It's bigger than that, right? I mean, it's something bigger. I mean, what do you guys see 5, 10 years from now? What are we starting here?
That's the thing about ideas. Like ideas are intangible.
But what do you see? What do you see? I
see a lot of possibility, and I think you have 4 founders. I'm going to include Rory in that. You have 4 founders here. So I said I went through the first cohort on North Shore. Rory actually has a startup, and he took it through this last one. So like both of us are involved in this ecosystem space, and I think you've got 4 founders here who are not committed just to the space we're creating, but committed to the idea of what that space is going to bring to the North Shore and to the ecosystem. And so I don't think it's ever going to be something that we hold with a closed fist. So in terms of possibilities and what we can create, this is where founding members and future members that are going to be joining Palette Northshore are going to have a lot to say in terms of what we can create for the North Shore through this space as partners.
And I think that, ultimately what the possibilities are, one of the unique things going in now are the partnerships that Bradley mentioned earlier. It isn't just a co-working space. It's, the space is a cool space, and it's going to be a great space to work. But really, the secret sauce, I think initially is going to be the networking and the connections that provide the training. There's going to be a concierge. What do you need to help you get to the next level, which is different than the next person? We can help. But we've already got partnership with GNO Inc. and St. Tammany Corp. and LED and Southeastern, to help us put on programming and bring, because the problem with the North Shore, again, one of the other challenges with the North Shore is just there is no place to bring. If you want to bring people together, you have to find a restaurant or an event space, and it's always there was no place that was natural. So I think what I see down the road is this ecosystem just growing, where we have more partners bringing more resources to the table, and then which then will expand, I think, that campus beyond just this footprint of Palette, because this is 1/4 of that building, I could see taking over the entire building and expanding it into a greater size hub that would become kind of like a hub for adult education or for entrepreneurships or
But this is a hub for the North Shore.
Yeah.
Could this transform the North Shore?
I think, again, going back to my roots with St. Tammany, and that's what I told Chris Massing on St. Tammany, I just think this is a significant a venue and a place that they could really augment what they're doing that they don't have right now.
Yeah. This kind of takes me to the conversation we were having yesterday with St. Tammany Corp in that roundtable with their marketing approach and their rebranding and what they're trying to do. Because I think with our partnerships that we have, with this being kind of that nexus point, I think Palette Northshore can really be that stepping stone that helps St. Tammany Corp and all of our partners really move it to the next level. This feels like the natural next step for the North Shore.
And can I say one other thing?
You can say whatever you
from
want.
a personal standpoint, because this is also something that's been quite interesting for me personally, as it relates to this collision of visions. One of the other passions that has come up in my retirement is I started a nonprofit called Just One Voice just a few months ago, and the primary focus
JustOneVoice.com, right?
it's just hyphen one one voice dot org. But the primary purpose of that, and again, this was to create opportunities for people mostly in underserved communities.
Yep.
And then there's a number of programs and things that I got involved in over the last couple of years, which I won't go into now, but I have a passion for that. Is how do you create, what does economic development mean for those people who are in underserved communities? It's not bringing in a big Fortune 500 company. It's like, how do you create people that don't have opportunities otherwise, and what kind of training? And so one of the things that I want to merge my passion in Just One Voice with my passion in startups is maybe to create opportunities where I can provide memberships. Just One Voice can offer memberships or provide grants for those startups that serve the mission of Just One Voice, that may have a startup that helps an underserved community. I'm going to put together a program that could offer a grant program for that.
So the
that's,
ecosystem could scale.
and
Yeah.
So-
because honestly, there's a lot of, while there's a lot of affluent people on the North Shore, there's a lot of poverty on the North Shore too. It's like how can Palette help those
Right.
people on the North Shore that are not in the affluent sector? How can we help them lift up?
The tagline for Palette Northshore is connecting people, creating possibilities. And I think the major asset, which I think you're hearing right now in this conversation, but the major asset for anybody considering being a part of it is the access that this hub is going to provide. So like you hear the terminology like 6 degrees to Kevin Bacon, right? So like if it takes 6 people for me to get to the thing that I'm really trying to get to, like that may be too many steps.
Yeah.
If what Palette Northshore can do is reduce that down like 1 or 2x, right? So like in order to get to Marty Meyer now, like
That's
I'm
transformative.
there.
Yeah.
And so if we can help people access, whether it's through programs, through networks, through mentorship, through all of these opportunities, whether it's access to capital, like any of that stuff, like if we can improve that pipeline, that's going to be what's transformative.
So it seems like this is a moment in time. Like I said, it didn't just happen. It's taken 15 years of foundation building. It's taken serendipity. It's taken energy. And right now, you guys have decided to find 100 founding members at $2,000, so $200,000, right? One person can write that check. I mean, I'm sure, let's go find one rich person, write the check, and let's go do a deal. That's not what you're doing. You're looking for a certain individual to be part of this. So pitch me. If you were to pitch the founders right now, pitch somebody writing a check right now to be a founding member, give me the pitch.
I would do the same. Rory has talked about this. Justin Greenleaf, who's on our advisory board, has talked about this. Stephen Ballard talked about this. Where
Elena Scott has talked about this.
They've
All startups.
All of them have mentioned the same thing, no matter where they are in the germination of their business, how mature their business is, when they got started. If they had had someone or something that was there to help them navigate and access all the tools they needed to become successful, they could have done it better, they could have scaled faster.
Yep.
And so for us, the pitch to existing businesses is like, look,
No, the right to be a founding member of this.
right.
Yeah.
So a rising tide rises all boats.
And-
So here you are now, and this is the conversation I've had with these advisory board members like Stephen and Justin Greenleaf is like, here you are now, and you have a chance to give back, but in giving back, you get to rise those tides, and that's going to pay back dividends to you as an existing and mature business.
There are a lot of people that are in the position they've been successful and they want to give back, but when you're starting a business, and actually I had this conversation yesterday with Chenzo. Sometimes it's kind of easier to start a business, but then it's like once you start, it's like, then what?
Yeah.
It's like you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
It's like sometimes you don't even know what you don't know until you get into it. Then it's like, oh shit. Oh, can I say shit? You don't know what you don't know, and so this is where I think the pitch is. You don't know. None of us know. We only know what we know, and we only know the experience we have, and sometimes having other people that you can turn to. I can tell you, even in my career, I mean, one of the things is there's a lot of things I didn't know, and but I had a lot of smart people around me, and could help me along the way, and so now if I can give back and to other people and help bring others to the table that will give back, then that's what this is about, is how do you create the give and take of people that are coming up, and how do you do it for the next generation? I mean, this is where you're talking about somebody my age, who is this for? Is it for some, but it's for both, really, because it's for people. I think of my kids and grandkids. It's like, well, if you can create something better than you had, and create a legacy that's better than you had, then isn't that worth it? And then
Well, you said this, early on about keeping our kids here. This is for those kids that probably haven't been born yet. They have a place to go.
well, exactly.
Oh my God.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly, because and we and I have talked about it, and going back to why I had this vision when I was the chair of GNO Inc. It's because I grew up in the time when there were decades and decades and decades of people moving away. Young people moving away, and it was just by kind of the luck of the draw that I came back. I did move away out of college, and I thought I was going to be away. I didn't think I was going to come back because my job out of college was in Texas. And it was kind of by the luck of the draw that I got back to New Orleans, and then I got back involved. And so, but most of the people were moving away. So my focus was, well, how do you keep my kids and grandkids here? And so,
Is Palette a manifestation of that? Is that something that can keep our kids and grandkids here?
For sure.
there's no question.
Yeah.
So here's a final question. We've got, and you guys are part of the New Society here on the South Shore.
Yeah.
And now you've got Palette on the North Shore.
Yeah.
And what an opportunity for a partnership. Like now you start to strengthen the two
Yeah.
regions and such. Y'all have made a generous offer for New Society members, for the founding members. What is something, if someone is a New Society member, the opportunity to be a founding member of Palette?
Yeah, so we're doing $504 off the founding membership. So any New Society members, whether they live on the South Shore or they live on the North Shore, if they want to be able to utilize that space, it's co-working space, plug into that community, they think that's a benefit to them, definitely go to palettenorthshore.com and you can register there. You can also just follow up with us through contact through New Society to either Marty or myself, and we'll connect you with our team.
That's amazing. So if you are a New Society member and you want to be a founding member of Palette, they'll take $504 off the founding member price, and there's only 100 of those, right?
That's right.
There's 100 of those, and you guys are launching in the next couple weeks publicly. So, the opportunity to strengthen the ties between not only New Society and Palette, but North Shore, South Shore, there's an opportunity.
Yeah, and we've actually already started taking in. We actually have already taken in some founding memberships. Have already started ringing out. We have our first public event is on the 27th, but some of that's already taken place. We actually have 99 people. I asked Matt this morning that have signed up for that initial public event on the 27th.
Good.
That doesn't mean we have 99 members already.
No, 99 people
but
come to the
that's a
event.
really good response. 1 weekend to kind of pushing this out.
It feels like a
event.
moment.
It does.
Right?
It feels
like
good.
you had to be in the Superdome when we kicked the field goal. You had to
Yeah.
be. If you weren't at the Super Bowl, you weren't there, right?
Yeah,
if
that's
you
right.
had to be there.
Yeah.
Any final words? This has been not only exciting to hear this, the understanding this isn't just a building. This is part of a 15-year movement. Any final words?
I think
I would say,
Go ahead.
age
I'll-
before
let me say
beauty.
this and I'll let you
Age,
finish. I'll let you close.
okay, let me close
you
because
close.
I'm sure what I've got to say is
much
much
better.
more,
It's
more
much more
profound than what you've got to
refined.
say.
It's yeah.
you get to look it up in AI while he's talking.
Put it in. What should I say here? What I really like about the partnership we have between the four founders is we each bring something really unique to the fabric. What Catherine's done is really test her idea out in running a co-working space and having that experience that obviously Marty and I don't.
She's a community person.
Right,
She's in there
yeah.
every day.
So she gets that. And so this coalescence, this collision of these three different visions from each of us, and then obviously Rory being a startup guy and an entrepreneur that's super well connected on the North Shore is giving us a lot of feedback. Those four voices in this mix, I think is exactly what this moment needed. But we do need more voices, which is why we've put together a really strong advisory board with people across a bunch of different sectors that do a lot of different work. And I think the founding members are going to add to that singular voice of what we're creating, what this moment's all about.
They're creating the culture.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, bring us home, Marty.
Well, and I was going to say, and not to inflate your ego, Tim, but I would say, one of the things that I feel strongly about, when the pitch I would make to people, and why would you join Palette? Why would I be a founding member of Palette? Why would I take the leap with Palette? Because we still have, the space is just under construction. It's going to be, why do I take the leap? And Catherine, we talked about this yesterday. Why did I join New Society as a founding member? And I'm number 66, by the way.
Yep.
What I said is, and I think this is something that I would pitch to other people. And he talked about the partners and Palette. Is you talked to me about New Society and the vision for New Society, which was cool, and I mean, bringing people together that would otherwise not connect, and this is kind of the same way in a different way, but people that otherwise may never connect with each other, so it's connecting people. But at the end of the day, when I decided to become a founding member of Nieux Society, at the end of the day, what really pushed me over the edge was I love the vision and I love connecting people that otherwise wouldn't connect, because I'm all about that. But it was like, well, who's on board? It's like, well, Tim's doing it, and Patrick Comer's doing it, Zach Kupperman's doing it, Tara Hernandez is doing it. People that I think, well, these people, are gonna do something. So, I want to be involved, and it's kind of what I feel over here with Palette, and why we've spent so much time with our advisory board. Us, the partners, the members of the advisory board are people that the names are very well known. Our partners that we mentioned earlier are very well known. So that was why we put together this team of people that said, if they're involved, then I want to be involved.
Yeah.
And I think at the end of the day, that's the pitch I'd give people, is that, like, this is the group of companies and people that are going to get things done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, in conclusion, Palette is opening up. You guys are looking for founding members,
Yeah.
and if someone's listening to this, you have an opportunity to not only join a remarkable space on the North Shore, but to join a remarkable movement that you guys are leading. So, guys, thank you for being here,
Absolutely, thanks.
and we're looking forward to collaborating on the North Shore and South
Of
Shore.
course.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Tim.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.